Good morning, Mets fans, and welcome to a Monday edition of Driving with Mr. Met. I am Mr. Met, and the Mets did the bare minimum this weekend. They did what they had to do in Kansas City, taking 2 out of 3 from the Royals, ending a 500 road trip, and heading home 4 games over 500, 1.5 games out of the second wild card spot, and prepping for today's off day and tomorrow's 3-game series with the Cleveland Indians. I'm going to talk about the weekend set and prep for the weekday series coming up on today's show. So this is a bit of a different look. There are pool toys behind me, but that's not what's totally different about this, although that is a first. What's different about this is that I recorded I said what I'm about to say this morning on my way into the office, and didn't realize that I had forgotten to press the record button. So that kind of screwed up my morning plan, but I'll do my best to pick up where I sort of left off, to recap the Royals series and talk about the upcoming Indian series. So it was a good weekend. The Mets did what they absolutely had to do. They could not lose this series to the Royals. That was an absolute certainty. The taking 2 out of 3 was the least they could have done, and they frankly should have swept. But taking 2 out of 3 is fine. A 500 road trip, considering that it started in Atlanta, is also probably fine, although it would have been nice to go 4-2. At this point, the Mets head into a series with the Indians, 4 games over 500 and 1.5 games back of the second wild card, which, again, could be a lot worse, right? We're in a position now where we thought this would be garbage time baseball, and it's fun baseball. So let's just enjoy it while we can. I want to go over the series sort of briefly, starting with Friday night in Kansas City. The Mets lost Friday night, and it wasn't really Noah Syndergaard's fault. Like, look, Syndergaard broke a streak of 6 consecutive starts where he went 7 innings or more. That's a fantastic streak, and he should be happy about that. And it just sucks that it had to end. The temperature really got to him, it seemed. He really, I think he quoted himself saying he was sweating like a greased pig, which I'm not sure how greased pigs sweat, but they must sweat a lot if that's how he described his sweating. Noah was not bad in the game. He ended up giving up 2 runs across 6 innings. That's a quality start, people, so let's not get up in arms. The bottom line is the Mets offense did nothing against the Kansas City pitching staff, mustering 1 run, and that was it. I'm going to get on Mickey Callaway a little bit here. I don't quite like his decision-making process as it pertains to using Edwin Diaz late in the game on Friday night. He brings Diaz into a no-out, bases-loaded situation, which, look, if you're really keeping Diaz at their major league level to boost his confidence and get him back to what he used to be, putting in positions like this, which are like outcome probability of success is like 0, is not the ideal place to put Edwin Diaz. I'm not saying there was a better choice in the bullpen, but I think Diaz should have been the last guy used in that spot. Regardless, Diaz did come in and inherit a mess that Brad Brack, whatever, started, and he did his best to clean it up. He did end up walking in a run. He did almost give up a grand slam, which would have just been crippling for him. But he did end up getting out of the inning, giving up 2 runs. He didn't get charged with either of them. I guess that's a good thing. And he induced a double play and got a strikeout. So I had an issue with Mickey there doing that. Had a couple of other issues with Mickey this weekend. 2 of them yesterday. In the game on Friday, J.D. Davis tweaked his calf when he was running out a ground ball in the infield in the 9th inning. When, by the way, the Mets came back again and fought back again despite being down. Davis tweaks his calf. He misses the day Saturday, and he's not starting on Sunday. He did pinch hit on Saturday, and he did pinch hit yesterday. However, he ran the bases yesterday as a pinch hitter, and immediately had to come out of the game when he pulled up lame. Now, I immediately was getting pissed at Mickey Callaway, like, why is he even in this game if he's not 100%? There's no reason to use him. And there was a reason to use him. I mean, J.D. Davis is the best bench option on a bench that has next to no options on it. I get that part, but there was no reason to push him if he's not 100% and risk further injury and losing him for the season. J.D. Davis leads the National League in hitting since the start of the second half. We're talking like 5 weeks now of quality play from J.D. Davis. The Mets can ill afford to lose him for an extended period of time, and there was no reason for him to be pinch hitting and running the bases with a compromised calf. I was pissed at Mickey for that, and even though it worked out okay, I wasn't thrilled with the fact that Mickey kept Familia out there for 2 innings yesterday. I thought that should have been an Edwin Diaz spot, mainly because there was no pressure for Diaz to do anything at all and do anything badly. He could have given up the runs and been fine. Speaking of Edwin Diaz, it's worth mentioning that there's been talk about the Mets, both Phil Regan and the Mets analytics staff, seemingly figuring out having him really close to getting his slider back, and sort of leaning towards that as the problem with Diaz's season, that it just hasn't had his slider. And I mean, clearly he hasn't had it. There's no doubt there. If they were able to fix him, and the Mets somehow got a right Edwin Diaz for the stretch run over the next couple of weeks, that would be awesome. That would be awesome. But we'll see. I have no idea how that'll play out. We'll find out. The Mets did end up taking 2 out of 3, as I said, from Kansas City. They did so on the back of a really strong series from Amed Rosario. Rosario continues to impress at shortstop and even in left field yesterday. He's got his batting average up to 291. And he's raised his batting average like 20 points over the course of 2 weeks, has Rosario. Drove in 3 more runs yesterday, had a quality series after almost hitting for the cycle last week in Atlanta. So Rosario has been awesome, and I'm so happy. It's proof positive that we shouldn't give up on these guys when they're kids, and we should let them develop. You know, not everybody's going to be Ronald Acuna Jr. and come up and just tear the cover off the ball like he's a 15-year veteran. Rosario is coming into his own, and he's turning into a really excellent player. And when Jeff McNeil comes off the injured list, I'd love to see Rosario stay in the leadoff spot and McNeil slide in behind him in the 2-hole. Because I agree with Keith. I don't like the big boppers batting second. I don't feel like they've got an RBI opportunity in the first inning when they're batting second. Excuse me, sorry. The other big performance, of course, Conforto had a nice series, but Pete Alonso. I mean, we got to talk about the polar bear. Yesterday, Pete Alonso made National League history, Major League history in the National League. The most home runs in a single season by a rookie ever at 40 and counting. He is 1 home run shy of tying the Mets' franchise record for home runs in a single season, which of course is co-held by Todd Hundley and Carlos Beltran. And he's going to beat that soon. And I think Aaron Judge's number 52 is in jeopardy. I think Pete's got something like 38 games left to hit 13 home runs. 1 every 3 days. It's about what he's doing. So it'll be a fun month and a half, that's for sure, watching Pete race after this prize and try and get himself a Major League record. So that's it for the KC series. That was fun, and we won, and that's good. Looking ahead, no game today. I hate off days on Mondays. But the Mets do bring in the Cleveland Indians into Citi Field for the start of a big homestand. The Mets have Matz, Stroman, and Syndergaard going in the 3-game set. And that's a good sign for us pitching-wise because at least we have Stroman and Syndergaard. I don't know which version of Steven Matz we'll get, so I can't be thrilled about him. But regardless, there's a little advantage here because this is in a National League park, meaning there's no designated hitter. The Indians are an American League team, of course, and therefore their roster is constructed as such to have a DH in the lineup every day and a weak bench. Speaking of weak benches, I mean, the Mets certainly don't have a strong one, but they're technically built to have a bench that needs to perform more so than an American League team does. Plus, the pitching staffs are not used to hitting, of course, from the AL, so it'll be interesting to see how that impacts this series. We all know that Mets pitchers can handle the bat pretty well, right? I mean, that's a foregone conclusion. We'll see if that has an impact in the way the Indians face the Mets here. I'd like to see the Mets take 2 out of 3 from Cleveland. It's going to be tough. The Indians are a good team. They are, I think they're in first place still in the AL Central. And if they're not, they're only trailing the Twins by a game or a half game or so because they've sort of been jockeying back and forth over the last few weeks for first place in the division. But they're 20-plus games over 500 now are the Indians. And if the Mets want to be able to continue to ride this wave of success, they're going to have to take on and defeat these good teams. Looking further ahead, the Braves are next. So it's important for the Mets to start out this homestand on a high note and get the ball rolling with Steven Matz tomorrow night. So that'll wrap it up for today in round 2 of my doing this chat on the day. This time, hopefully, I pressed record, and I did. I can see the numbers there. So if you want to follow me on Twitter, you can do that at Mr_Met. I will be back on Wednesday to discuss tomorrow night's first game. And until then, have a great one. And as always, let's go Mets.